People of the internet, Theo Vaughn is dismantling the interview show, and we will learn in today's New York Times article why the comedian and podcaster is one of the defining conversationalists of media's new MAGA-friendly mainstream, but he can be harder to pin down politically and culturally than his broadcast peers. How exciting! Theo Vaughn in the New York Times, and I predicted a few months ago that he will be bigger than Joe Rogan, that he's going to take his place because Joe Rogan is crashing out harder than a Formula One race, and it's just not going to last much longer. So join me in this article by John Carmanica. Fucking no, what is that? Anyways, here we go. Is Theo Vaughn podcasting from the right or the left? That depends from where you're looking. When he sat with Donald Trump last summer in the run-up to the presidential election, he led a surprisingly affecting and humanizing conversation about drugs and addiction unlike any Trump had ever publicly had, but also with Gabor Mate, a Canadian physician who has written extensively about the Middle East. The conversation about thousands of children killed by Israel in Gaza reduced Vaughn to tears. Is Vaughn compassionate or crude? With the professor and podcaster Scott Galloway, Vaughn spoke openly about his struggles with pornography. It was the first kind of interaction with women that I could imagine, but also joking with Grace O'Malley, an up-and-coming comedian, about her romantic dry spell. Vaughn assured her, "I think there's a lot of semen heading your way in 2025. There you go. I think the thing is here's the thing about life. You will learn. There are people that just a majority of people like that just, they may not be tall, or they may not be physically huge and buff and intimidating, or they might not be the smartest guy in the world, but they have this thing that cancels out all those other things, and that's the ability for a lot of people to like you. You just have that personality where people just like you. You're the guy that everyone likes, and it's probably the best quality that you could ever have, because if you're the guy that everyone likes, you don't have to be smart. You don't have to be super strong. You don't have to be super tall. You don't have to be super powerful. You don't have to have a lot of money, because those things will come because people like you. Because people at the end of the day want to be around people they like and that like them. And these guys like Theo Vaughn, that just everyone likes. It's like Adam Sandler has that shit too. Everyone likes Adam. Or Keanu Reeves. It's probably the best gift you can be given in your DNA. Like, I don't think, because it'll cancel out everything else and you will have success, because winning people over is probably one of the easiest ways to success. If everyone likes you, they're going to bring you with, right? Or they're going to lift you up. It's just how it goes with these people. And Theo Vaughn, that's the one thing Joe Rogan, I feel like, used to have, where he connected with people, but now he just lost it and just become an angry old tyrant. It's crazy. As an interview and the host of This Past Weekend, a podcast that routinely garners millions of views and listens, ranking among the most watched shows in the country, Vaughn's chameleonic chill is both his superpower and his mask. The result is kind of a lenticular effect. Depending on the week, he's a sophisticate or a knife. I don't know what that is. No, that's a fancy word. One of the bros or a sly interloper. Vaughn, an aw-shucks 45-year-old with hair somewhere between shag and mullet and a persistent mien of latent mischief, is often lumped. God damn. These guys, these writers, Jesus Christ, they just use words. They just use it. This is like, damn, I haven't read an article where it's just like, oh, look at my grammar skills. I don't know. I just think when people just use so much language to, like, it's just like you're trying too hard. An elegantly grouped manosphere, a loose aggregation of the podcast hosts and social media figures. Maybe I just don't speak well. That's probably it. All right. Joe Rogan being the son of the solar system. Yep. Whose politics leaning rightward and whose attitude is allergic to doubt. They have built, in short, order a parallel mainstream media ecosystem with personality-driven platforms that often let guests hawk their viewpoints unchecked, creating an echo chamber of boost and brag. And now, I'm not trying to look at a political view, but you can say that they're obviously talking about their politics because this is what news organizations do. But you see there it says hawk their viewpoints unchecked, right? I think the same goes for their comedy. Their comedy goes unchecked. Like who likes this shit? You know? Well, I mean, obviously, right? But really, do they really? I just can't. I can understand different types of comedy, different forms, but I just think the Rogansphere is so bad. I just have a hard time understanding why anybody likes it at all because it's just objectively terrible. Last month, when Vaughn was a guest on Full Send podcast hosted by MAGA prankster Nelk Boys, he poked at their spacious moral window in regard to booking guests. Finally, somebody that's not a sex trafficker on here. Oh, shit. But unlike those peers, Vaughn is pointedly tough to pin down culturally or politically. His fear-free, lightly oddball, and unself-conscious inquisitiveness and his comfort playing with jumbled signifiers or political affiliation, race, class, and more, make him a far more nebulous performer. Under the cover of the manosphere, he became one of the defining conversationalists in America. Theodore Capatini von Korntowski. Shit, the third. What the what is this? Is that what he calls himself? Who describes his heritage as Polish and Nicaraguan and grew up in a small town, Louisiana. He speaks often about his challenging relationship with his family. His father was over 60 when Theo was born, and he has said he was legally empathetic or emancipated at 14. I wonder why. It was crazy. 6-year-old father. Man, back in those days, back in the 80s, or he was born in the late 70s. Be a tough dad. His first brush with celebrity came in 2000 as a teenage cast member on season 9 of MTV's Road Rules. Dude, Road Rules was the best, dude. Before reality TV became this just like shit show thing, I really enjoyed like the Real World, the early Real World. And you remember like Puck, and then I think Puck and Pedro were on the same season. It was like Puck did really horrible stuff, was like one of the worst cast members of all time. And then I think on the same season was Pedro, and then afterwards he died because he had AIDS. It was just crazy. I think Road Rules, especially those, not Road Rules, all Road Rules too, but I think those early, like maybe season 1 through 8, 7, or maybe 1 through 10, I don't know how long before it got real bad. It was good for a while. I think the Real World was always pretty good. It was always pretty good. I watched all of them. But I think the early ones just really captured the 90s. Like, really captured the 90s. And I'm really sad that MTV just stopped making it. They put it on Facebook. They put it on Facebook for like a season, and I watched that. But I was a big Real World fan. Man, I wish it was still here. You know, I liked it. I just liked how they went into a city. They got a really fat crib thing every time. They had this really awesome house, and they worked jobs, come on. But it just really, I mean, you look at the ones on like San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, New York City, you really got to capture it. Like in these in these shows today, I mean, in the first Real World, weren't they all just like working jobs and they were just basically roommates, and they would capture the stuff between. But now these reality shows, you're like locked in the house. You go out to these clubs that know you're coming. Maybe they get filled with people, you know, and it just doesn't feel good. And I think that's probably why I like Below Deck. Below Deck still has that feeling, you know. I'm a reality TV fan. No, only the good ones. I like the working class, like Below Deck. What are other ones? I used to like Summer House. Well, I still watch Summer House. I'm not gonna lie, but they turned into rich kids too, and it just gets, when they start being all about money. There's nothing wrong with having money. I just don't like. You should just, people just shouldn't know you have money. You know what I mean? Anyways. This past, okay, it's 9, blah, 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 blah. He went on to become a stand-up comic. This past weekend began in the mid-2010s in part as a platform for Vaughn to talk about his addiction recovery process. He has spoken about his struggles with alcohol and drugs and intimacy disorder, as it has become an interview destination for comedians, musicians, actors, and politicians. Vaughn has repositioned himself as a Forrest Gump-esque everyman, careening his way to the top of American pop culture and democracy. You're exceptional at being average, the right-wing media personality Candace Owens told him. Isn't that crazy? Let's just take a little gander here. Top podcast charts. Let's just take a little gander here. Look at the Spotify. Dang! Dude. You'll not believe this. Joe Rogan went back up to the top today, but you will not believe this, dude. In fact, I'll just say Theo Von's number 3 because that's another video right there. I just discovered another. Oh, I told you, 2 people are going to overtake Joe Rogan. Anyways, Rogan perhaps his closest analog, treats interviews like bouts of conspiratorial one-upmanship. Vaughn's mode is almost completely the opposite. In his rangy, vibey conversations, he presents a proxy for the average American citizen, getting bombarded by opinions for all times and simply trying to forge a coherent path through the competing streams of information and misinformation. Last fall, his show went into overdrive, becoming a must-visit for politicians and proxies from both parties. Trump, Bernie Sanders, J.D. Vance, Mark Cuban, stumping for Kamala Harris, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but his motivations went purely political. Vaughn said he was partly drawn to Trump, knowing that one of Trump's brothers died of alcoholism-related causes, and thought talking about that with him might be revealing. Yeah, I think people like an everyman, you know. And I think one of the reasons is because honestly, people want to be comfortable with themselves. People want to be okay with themselves. People want basically to be okay with themselves and not care what people think. And if people make things, they still feel okay with themselves. And so when you have an everyman, he's not as self-conscious. He's not worried about his presentation like Theo Von. Theo Von just hang out and be who he is, and people really like that. And you can't blame them because in today's world, we have so much bullshit, you know, like Joe Rogan, Big Pharma Joe. Pharma Joe! That's what I'm going to call him from now on. Farmer Joe, selling out. Anyways. Where are we? Okay, yeah. But, okay, you don't hear about his feelings, Trump's feelings, Vaughn told the comedian Tom Green during a recent episode. If you do, he doesn't communicate it in a way it's very emotional to people, I don't feel like. So I was just curious about that. Vaughn tried to host Harris and Tim Waltz to no avail. It was kind of a bummer. I think it would just have just let them be more normal, he told Green before pivoting to thought only why the unvarnished world of podcasts is so disproportionately effective. If something's too much behind the glass these days, people don't trust the glass. And there's no glass on this past weekend. Yeah, see, that's what I said. Which has the anything might happen along of public access television. Vaughn's interviews generally run around 2 hours and can feel even less hurried than that. Key to their effectiveness is that neither Vaughn nor his guests appear to have anywhere else to be. A jagged conversationalist, Vaughn sometimes leads with spicy wit, sometimes with curiosity, and sometimes with silence. Often he holds on to his thoughts, or maybe formulating them just a couple of seconds longer than is comfortable, nudging his guests to fill the void. Vaughn's show, with its afterthought set design, his studio is in Nashville, where he now lives. An unassuming effect is the antithesis of the canned talk shows that network television has been refining for half a century. And while it's difficult to compare metrics across platforms, Vaughn's audience often tops 1 million views on YouTube, and he competes with the glib performances of 3 major late-night hosts, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, and Stephen Colbert. He can draw. I don't know why I said Jimmy Killen. I don't know why. He can draw on wider range of guests as well. After the wave of social media cancellations that began in 2010, it's unsurprising that an alternative media universe would emerge to provide safe harbor for actual alleged or purported transgressors or social mores or politics or misbehavior who would have had been derided but maybe not disqualified in earlier generations. You know, Theo Von, I think somewhere Theo Von saw where the Rogansphere was going. And but this is the guy that gets along with everybody. You know, the guy that I had a friend like that in college when I was skateboarding a lot. He was a sponsored skateboarder. And basically he was the key to skating with all the coolest people that skated in our city. And it didn't matter. You would think there were people you think were miserable and he would get along with them. And it's like, how? He just gets along with anybody. And those people with that thing, it's almost like they can't not give everybody a chance. You know, where I would be like, bro, fuck that guy. He's just like, this is how people is, bro. It's just crazy. It's crazy. And that's what Theo Von is doing. I wish, bro, half of my life's trouble would be solved if I had that ability. Holy shit. Okay. But dint of his down-home edginess and comfort with slick filth, Vaughn somewhat overlaps with the rest of the manosphere. What sets him apart is that he's not particularly cowed by fame or wisdom or authority or aggression. He blends curiosity with humility and treats his guests as conveyors of mystical information, as if he's always slightly punching above his weight. I think that's pretty cool too, that he's not like the authority. Because a lot of these bigger guys will make you fear, or like, don't go off and get on this guy's bad side. He'll ruin you and stuff like this. And don't say this. It could end your career. And when all of these things are presented to Theo Von, he just gets through them and doesn't care. And that's great. You shouldn't care. I mean, if you realized how short time was and you only get one shot, you wouldn't care about half the shit you care about right now. Occasionally, Vaughn's guests say things to his face that can scan as lightly dismissive. Criticizing Vaughn for his Trump interview, the leftist streamer Hassan Piker told him, "You're not going to hit him on the stuff that he has no answer for." But Vaughn doesn't take offense. Instead, he concedes his shortcomings. "I thought that just because I had some political people on last year that I knew about politics," he told Piker. "I don't. That was a trap." He knows what he doesn't know and thereby leaves room for chats and unexpected tributaries. You know, that is great. We shouldn't always pretend that we know things, right? I think this is great. Dude, the first thing and being comfortable with yourself, I don't know all of the things, but just one step towards that is admitting you're stupid and you're just a dumb human and you're no better than anybody else. It's just how it is. His naivete is both honest and strategic, a carefully laid roadmap protecting Vaughn and forcing everyone else to move at his unlikely rhythm. Through humor, he asserts a quiet dominance over the chats, and sometimes he's the butt of the joke. In almost every episode, there comes a moment where Vaughn's guest stumps him. It's neither a gotcha, and the topic is rarely something terribly obscure. It could be as simple as an event, or a word, or a person that Vaughn has encountered before. Some recent examples, Mitchell Lama Housing, the Kurds who wrote the song "This Land Is Your Land," Misandry. Here's the thing. Do you notice that if any of these Roganspheres get any kind of like praise, like right now, this person is saying Theo Von is a good podcaster, and you look at Joe Rogan and he's a good podcaster. And you look at not Shane, but Matt McClusker. He's a terrible comedian, but good podcaster with Shane. And you look at all these things, and all these guys should just be podcasters. Stop saying you're comedians and just be podcasters. That's what you're good at. And I get it. You don't have to listen to me. And people that are just might have some issues are buying your tickets. But people want more of this from you. They don't want more comedy. Nobody's saying anything about your comedy. They're showing up to your shows because they like this. They want to see this guy in the podcast. That's why. That's why these guys sell out comedy. It's not for them comedy. You people say, "Oh, they sell stadiums." Yeah, because they're podcasts. Their podcasts. You don't see their stuff on the charts on Netflix. You don't see everyday people watching these guys. They have a fan base, and they come to their things because of the podcast. And I think they should just dive into the podcast, especially Theo Von. Theo Von's special was some of the most hot garbage I have ever witnessed. And he should just lean into this. I don't know. But I can't tell anybody because my YouTube channel's hot garbage too. So like, I still do this shit. Who knows? Even the way Vaughn sits appears guileless. Sometimes his hands gather in the lap shiftly, or he rubs his thighs for comfort, little fidgets that suggest unease. Much of the time, one foot rests at a 90-degree angle to the floor, with the other foot on top, like an idle middle schooler. The pacing of Vaughn's conversations can be herky-jerky, as if both Vaughn and his guests are tentatively exploring a new world together. Off-screen, a producer pulls up the text and images from the internet for them to look at. And sometimes there's a slight silence as they take in the information. A rare exception was with Timothée Chalamet, came on the show. His antic energy and active shilling for his role in Bob Dylan biopic A Complete Unknown tugged Vaughn out of his chill. Vaughn primarily wants to sit back and have his mind blown. He almost never disagrees with his guests, though his access is beginning to activate some more definitive stances. Sanders, the senator from Vermont, treated his time with Vaughn like a civics lesson, and Vaughn was a deeply game student. America, Vaughn groaned, is a shell LLC for expletive big corporations, he added. And then what am I? I'm just an idiot. You almost feel ashamed of yourself, he said, as Sanders agreed enthusiastically. Damn, this is a long article. I can't believe. I was just thinking about that. I can't believe that he got something like this. This is crazy. Like a big spread like this in New York Times, like Theo Von and Shane Gillis are going to be the end of Joe Rogan. I just know it. Vaughn paid equally rapt attention to Lila Micklethwait, I don't know that, an anti-sex trafficking activist who led a campaign urging Pornhub to remove underage content, as he did to Wayne Owen, a former New York City sanitation worker who, I don't know that word, recalled his smelliest stories and mused on ways of one might dispose of a body undetected. Dude, these guys, man, that shit's just unnecessary. What ethnicity probably has the worst smelling garbage, Vaughn wondered. He can sometimes free fall into inventive left field phasing that achieves a sort of bliss. He said he once saw the boxer Evander Holyfield putting French fries in his Panama Canal, kissing someone with his lip fillers like trying to eat two shrimps that won't give up. Nudity is the Lord's matte finish. When Sanders spoke about staying in a century-old home in Oxford, England, Vaughn replied, "You got to bring your own plumbing, I'm sure." You never seen Sanders golf so deeply. One of the three genuine belly laughs Vaughn extracted from the normally unshakable curmudgeon. Hey, that's a good word, curmudgeon. While Vaughn might socially caucus with other manosphere figures, they're all regular presences at the Ultimate Fighting Championship events, and some of them sat together at Trump's inauguration. His alignments aren't terribly political or even terribly masculinist, at least not by comparison. That said, by my count, less than 20% of the guests in the past 12 months have been women. His politics, to the extent that reveals them, don't fall neatly along party lines. They reflect the choose-your-own-adventure political affiliations of huge swaths of Americans. Lest he be pigeonholed, Vaughn airs political guests roughly back-to-back to provide balance. Sanders and Trump last August, Owens and Piker last month. Hey, that's cool, man. Staying in the middle. If you want to mess with politics or have politics on your podcast, the best way is to stay in your middle. Let them voice their opinion. Let the audience decide, or people. And I think Vaughn's doing a way where Rogan failed, Vaughn learned and is doing it way better. And that's just my opinion. Instead, he seems to be moved by inner morality, an instinctual defense of the downtrodden. He returns frequently to the Israel-Hamas war, as he did in Owens' episode. A clip of their conversation with both Vaughn and Owens criticizing Trump's support of Israel was circulated widely by left-leaning accounts and painted as an anti-Semitic by the right, but occasionally his views tilt the other way. In February, he posted and deleted a message on X that was critical of President Vladimir Zelensky after the Ukrainian leader's Kalamash's Oval Office meeting. What the fuck? Tell the guy to give us our tax law. Look, it's been a while since I've been in college. A lot of these words, dude, I haven't used, or, it's crazy. New York Times trying to be all sophisticated shit, Morality about preclude humor, though, or offense. In Vaughn's calculation, they come from the same soil, an upbringing among the disposed. His fault lines don't harden along lines of race or gender or sexual orientation or political affiliation. Instead, he asks, are you getting stepped on? If not, you're on the wrong side. It's the clearest point of distinction between him and the rest of the manosphere. Yeah, he learned. You learned, man, you can have money and stuff, but it ain't going to solve your problems. It ain't going to solve humanity's problems. But I think sticking together and, reaching out to each other in some way, I think we could do better. For the most of us, right? These people at the top don't give a fuck about us. That's even more clear when Vaughn leaves his podcast studio and heads out on the road to do stand-up. In early April, Vaughn's Return of the Rat tour went to the University of Mississippi in Oxford. A lot of white people, he deadpanned about the audience composition at the beginning of his hour-long set. Thank you for coming to the very special meeting. Awkward laughs. I'm not racist, bruh, unless you are. You first. On this past weekend, Vaughn deploys affability to put others at ease. On stage, he uses the same to soften up crowds so as to leave them vulnerable to shock. Face to face with his audience, Vaughn, limber, mischievous, aware of his own silliness, toyed with the gap between who shows up and who he's really addressing. Most of Vaughn's comedy is about have-nots, loving roasts of people who might be at a varying valences of social disadvantage. Black people, gay people, people with developmental disability. This is racy embodied comedy of 2 or 3 decades ago, when the identity politics was a luxury product, but delivered with warmth and affection, a dynamic that was often lost on Vaughn's roisterous crowd. He just has it, man. He just has it. He has it. He has it. He has it. I just don't think his comedy has it, but his podcasting definitely has it. His politics, such as they were politics, were those of equal opportunity discomfort, the permission to insult equally, gay jokes that also triggered straight people's discomfort with gay people, jokes about black people that also toy with white racial anxiety, the laughter when it came. Do you hear that? When it came. I'm just saying it probably wasn't often. Was stilted and uncomfortable. Yeah, he's a bad comic. Was Vaughn with them or against them? This being lightly, he was telling bad jokes. We saw a special. I don't think these guys get any better. Look at Joe Rogan, look at Tim Dillon, look at Ari Shaffir, look at Bert Kreischer, look at Tom Segura. Some of you can make a case that they were good, like especially Tom Segura, the case that Tom was good in the beginning, but as they have gone along, they've got progressively worse. But look, here's the thing. Theo Vaughn is doing something in the podcasting world where all the others follow Joe Rogan. So perhaps there might be some way that he has done his podcast differently from the rest and got away from their shit. Maybe his comedy will get better. We will see. I will be watching that next special for sure. Referring to Oxford trapped in the antebellum South acquaintance, the clock at the top of the town square courthouse said 5 p.m. He paused. In 1862, Vaughn joked that someone there jumped out from the bushes and asked him, "You got any news from the north?" Vaughn exulted, "You're free, buddy." Then he talked about ordering okra at a restaurant called the Vegetable Slave Jalapenos. Okay. These bits, the line-crossing race talk, the hot-button words, the naughty glee, were rude and presumptuous, and like many offenses Singh predicted upon fluency and life's endless tragedies, also funny or close to it. But Vaughn delivers them without vitriol or judgment. His comfort is depending on the audience member, an invitation to boorishness, a safe place for liberal friskiness, or squeamish line too far. Vaughn plays to them all while poking at them too. He painted the younger version of himself as an aimless drug user, a person whose family all but dismissed him as a child, and he sprinkled raw childhood pain throughout his set. He described his mother's reaction to his being placed with learning disabled schoolmates booming, "Oh, you're retarded. How much is that going to cost us?" He wasn't delving into the damaged relationships with family to demean, he said. "I'm just trying to tell you how I ended up on drugs." Ultimately, the person he was harshest on, or the most willing to seek teeth into, was himself. Stories about his upbringing turned Vaughn into a frizzed out Garrison Keeler. I don't know what the fuck that is. At the ice cream shop where he worked as a teen, we were underground railroad of autism, he said. You open up the freezer, Harriet Tubman would jump out that bitch. Those early letdowns burned off a part of me that was hopeful, but those mishaps and misadventures made me observant, tolerant, and also ambitious. At the end of the set, he showed a trailer for a movie written with and co-starring David Spade that Vaughn said would come out later this year, though it has been rejected by countless studios. It's probably terrible. He spoke about feeling ostracized by Hollywood and not seen for who he is. The same sort of language he'd early used to describe his family, his friends, the people of his childhood. Being the one on stage, he suggested, didn't make him any different now. Vaughn's comedy, increasingly his political worldview, boils down to crucial framework. You're either one of them or one of us. How far he goes, however, may hinge on making sure both sides continue to claim him as their own. That is, everybody's going to claim him. Everybody likes Theo Vaughn. I just think he should be a podcaster. There's not many people who can be the Deion Sanders of entertainment. And if you didn't know that, Deion Sanders played football and baseball at a high all-star level. And or just to be able to play it at a professional level, right? And there's not many people that can do that. A lot of these guys think because they succeed in this, they'll also succeed in that. And I just think if you're lucky enough to succeed, like for them in podcasting, just give podcasting your all. But I can't tell people what to do. This is my selfish opinion, but I just don't think these guys are comedians. And that's what it is. But look, Theo Vaughn is stepping out on his own, and he might be the one that doesn't go crashing down with the Rogansphere. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Peace.